Buying a house is one of the biggest financial moves you'll ever make, and there are so many things I didn't realize before buying my first house. I'll share the lessons that I learned the hard way so that when you go to buy a house, you can save money and have an overall better experience.
Okay, but this is not my house. This is a house that is actually for sale, but you guys know my house. This house. So the first thing that I wish I knew was all of the fees and closing costs involved with buying a house. So I knew about the realtor fee. I didn't know about all the other fees involved when it comes to buying a house. The loan origination fee, the escrow fees, home inspection fee, more specialty home inspection fees like a sewer line or a termite inspection. Those a lot of times you have to pay a separate inspector for. So for example, the house I'm in right now is for sale for $1.99 million. The buyer finances it. The loan origination fee could be anywhere from $7,000 to $20,000. The LA transfer tax would likely be about $8,900, and the LA County transfer tax would be about $2,000.
That's already almost $20,000 in closing costs, and that's not even all of them. Keep in mind though, this house is listed at $2 million, so for a less expensive house, these fees are also less.
And then all the other ones like inspection, appraisal, things like that, those are about $500 to $1,000 depending on the size of the house. A lot of the closing costs you pay up front, like the inspection fee, but a lot of times what people will do is roll some of the closing costs into the loan, so they pay it over the 30 years. They don't really need it up front. But still, I would budget for some random $1,000 fees here and there for inspections, appraisals, all that. The next thing I wish I knew is that these sellers don't necessarily have to get professional cleaners when they sell you the house. It's pretty standard when you move apartments, at least on the West Coast. The apartment complex has a professional cleaner come. When you move in, everything is spotless. However, when you go to buy a house, they don't always do that. A lot of times, actually, I don't think they do. I believe with both of my home purchases, they weren't professionally cleaned before. So this is something that's good to know, because if you want to have it professionally cleaned, you're probably gonna have to schedule that yourself. You can do that, or you can always just clean it yourself. And if you are gonna clean it yourself, I have a cleaning tool recommendation for you, and it is actually from the sponsor of this video, Roborock. Roborock has a couple new wet and dry vacuums called the F25 and the F25 ACE. These vacuums have some really helpful features to make cleaning more efficient. First thing being that this vacuum has an auto detergent dispenser. With both of these vacuums, it comes with a cleaning solution. So you put this in the vacuum.
It has a 100 milliliter cartridge that lasts about a month, and you can see it does a really good job cleaning stains. This is my entryway, so it has some footprints here, and just in like one go, it gets it.
With the F25 ACE, you can adjust the detergent ratio on the app. There's 3 different settings depending on how much cleaning power you want to use. Another cool feature with these vacuums that I haven't seen with other vacuums is the auto assist feature. When you go to push or pull the vacuum, it has this built-in drive motor that will basically help push it and pull it, so it makes it really easy and you don't have to actually put in that much effort yourself. And the last unique feature that is very useful is the jaw scraper. So if you have long hair like me, you may have noticed hair eventually will get tangled in the roller of a lot of vacuums. Not with this vacuum. It basically has these combed teeth at an angle that forces the hair to be combed.
This prevents the hair from getting tangled. So check this out. I did a test with some hair on the ground and then also some hot sauce, and it picks this all up in one go. So it is really impressive. And then when you're done, you can pop it back onto the dock to charge and to clean itself. It has a self-cleaning dock, so it cleans that roller brush at 194 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it also dries it. This vacuum has an edge-to-edge roller, so it can get right up to the edge of a wall or baseboard, making it so you don't have to use attachments or anything like that. You could even get under the toe kick of my kitchen. After cleaning, no hair tangled in there, everything looks good. And at 4.9 inches, it's able to get under most of my furniture as well.
Both the F25 and the F25 ACE are on sale until February 16th. I'll have the sale prices on the screen. The F25 ACE is a little more robust. It has a little more features, but the F25 is also a great vacuum and it's a little less expensive.
So I'll have them both linked down below if you guys want to check out the sale.
The next thing I wish I knew before buying my first house was actually a negotiation tactic. This tactic is where you let the sellers rent back the house after you've purchased it. So if you're in a competitive situation with all cash offers, it is so hard to compete if you're someone who's getting a mortgage. This tactic is actually really good and it helped Monica and I get the Palm Springs house. We closed on the house in October, but we didn't actually get the keys to move stuff in until around December. We allowed the sellers to rent back the house for a couple months because
because they still had to figure out where they were gonna go. And this is why this is such a good tactic if you're going to buy a house, is because it's very stressful for sellers to figure out where they're gonna go next if they don't have it yet lined up. And if you give them a couple months to figure it out, they're gonna be much more likely to go with you because it's gonna make their whole situation much less stressful. In our case, it was a competitive market, so we rented it back to them for free. But I've also seen situations where the sellers pay rent, and a lot of times they'll give them a good rate for it. A lot of times sellers will get like a little bit below market rate, like around what their mortgage was before. And if you're up against people who are throwing out all cash offers, offering the sellers to rent back their house actually makes your offer very competitive. I've seen situations where people beat all cash offers, which is really hard to do, but it's because they allow the sellers to rent back.
Another thing I wish I knew before buying a house was the cost of the utilities, specifically the electricity.
With the Palm Springs house, I was shocked at how expensive the electricity and the gas was, and I wish I had known before. Honestly, I don't know if I would have bought it.
I actually might have looked for a house that already had solar panels on it because they usually don't increase the cost of the house that much, but they make the monthly cost a lot lower for the owner.
I would ask to see what the average electricity bill is, especially if you're moving from an apartment to a house that has a lot more volume, like a 2-story house. You might want to see what their average electricity bill is because it might be a lot more than what you're paying now. It's an expense that you are going to have to pay, and it's like you hate to buy a house and then realize the actual cost is $500 a month more than you realized.
In the same realm as utilities is the backyard maintenance. I kind of forgot to factor in that a gardener is about $250 a month. And if you are buying a house with a pool, that's another about $200 to $250 a month in maintenance that you're gonna have to pay unless you're doing it yourself, which I feel like a lot of people don't.
The next thing I wish I knew before buying a house was that you get a tax advantage for buying a house that you actually live in. I don't know how I didn't realize this before buying the Palm Springs house, but I do wish I knew this because I would have prioritized buying a home for myself, a primary residence, rather than an investment property, because there's better tax advantages for a house that you live in. If you buy a house and you live in it for at least 2 of the last 5 years that you own it, you won't pay any tax up to $250,000 of the gains of that house. So let's say you bought a house for $1 million and when you sold, you got 1.25 million. That means that $250,000 in capital gains, you wouldn't pay any tax on. None. That's crazy. That's probably one of the best tax advantages in the freaking tax code. So in hindsight, I would have just bought a primary residence before buying the Palm Springs house.
There is a tax advantage with investment properties. You can do a 1031 exchange. However, I don't think this is as good because you're just deferring the taxes. You will eventually have to pay it, whereas with a primary residence, you don't have to pay the taxes at all.
I potentially could still get that tax advantage with the Palm Springs house. I would just have to actually live in it for 2 years full time, making my primary residence before selling it. So I could still do that. Honestly, maybe I will one day, I don't know, but yeah, I do just wish I knew that before. And the next thing I wish I knew before buying a house is that you as the buyer can pick your own lender and home inspector. A lot of people, when they go to buy a house, they just go with whoever their real estate agent recommends, and that can totally work. It's usually kind of the easiest route, but there are some pros and cons to this. If you're getting a mortgage, when it comes to the lender, there can be a lot of benefit to shopping around, getting multiple quotes for what interest rate you're gonna have. This way you're able to compare and get the best rate. If you only get a quote from the lender that your real estate agent recommends, you might not be getting as good of a rate as you could elsewhere, especially if you tell the other lender, hey, they got me this rate, can you do better? You might be able to get a better rate that way. It's a little more work, but it can save you quite a lot of money over the course of the loan.
For example, let's say you're financing $700,000 and one lender offers you 6%, another lender offers you 5.5%. Even though it's only 0.5% lower over the course of the loan, that would save you about $80,000.
It can be easier to just go with who your real estate agent recommends, but you might not be getting as good of a rate as you could elsewhere, so maybe shop around. And then when it comes to the home inspector, your real estate agent a lot of times will recommend one. Of course, the home inspector has to tell you everything that's wrong with the house, but certain home inspectors kind of downplay things, make it seem like it's not as big of a deal as maybe it might be. Other home inspectors might tell you, hey, this is going to be really expensive to fix. They can make the same information
sound not that bad, or the reality of it, which is that it might actually be pretty bad. I do think there could potentially be a situation where a real estate agent knows a home inspector who might not be as negative about things, and if it's a fixer-upper, they might pick an inspector who's going to not make as big of a deal out of things. So for a fixer-upper like this that's a bit older, you might want to hire your own inspector. Maybe if you have a referral from a friend, somebody that you trust is going to like give you all the information without any biases, you could do that if you want to. Now, I don't think most real estate agents are doing this where they're recommending an inspector who's gonna like downplay problems, but I think it could happen because real estate agents, they want the deal to close. They don't want anything holding it up. They don't want the buyers to drop out. So I wouldn't be shocked if there were some real estate agents out there who were recommending inspectors that maybe like don't make as big of a deal out of the issues that they find. I will say one of the homes I purchased, the home inspector made things sound like not a big deal, not that expensive to fix. That actually ended up being kind of expensive to fix. So I mean, up to you. You can always just go with who an agent recommends, but all I'm saying is you don't necessarily have to. If you want to pick someone else, you are well within your right to do that. So those are some of the things I wish I knew before I bought a house. I actually do have another video like this I made a while back, just right after I had bought a house. So if you want to see even more things that I think are good to know, you can watch that. This video, I wanted it to be things that I haven't really heard other people talk about and that can still be really useful to know. Some of the other things I've learned along the way that I think are useful to know if you are really anywhere in the home buying journey. By the way, if you are looking to buy or sell in LA or Palm Springs, I am a real estate agent here. I'll have my email on the screen. I'll also have it linked down below. If you have any questions or you're kind of just starting that process, you can email me. Okay, I hope that you guys found this interesting or helpful and enjoyed learning about this. I will have the Roborock vacuums linked down below if you want to check those out. And that's going to be it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!